had all this like crazy cash. And so like, I'm like, email Black River. I'm like, Black River team, I want a G6 and a G8 and a G13 and a G15.
Welcome to the USA Fingerboard Podcast. Today, I'm your host, Gary Graves. I'm excited to be chatting with Levine Cunningham, also known as USAFBL. Levine, welcome back to the podcast. Second time's the charm, so I had to run with it a little bit.
No, most definitely. I'm excited to be back on the podcast and
This is part two of the Levine story.
yeah, most definitely. So we did part one last week where I divulged into my life story. So you guys got pretty much a very exclusive look into my childhood, me growing up, what makes me tick, and how I pretty much got from here to looking at starting USAFBL.
And I just want to say, if you guys haven't watched it or listened to it yet, go back and check it out because it got deep and it's good. So go give this a listen to. If you're listening to the part two before part one, go listen to part one and then come back and listen to part two.
Yeah, I think a lot of things that we say here in part two will make a lot more sense once you listen to part one. So definitely give that a peep, and it's definitely a good listen for sure. So excited to get into it.
Well, let's get into it. Where did we leave off on part one?
So part one, we left off basically with COVID. COVID basically got me in a situation where I had time to just reevaluate my life, reevaluate what was happening to me in my life, and reevaluating where I was going in my life. And so COVID for me was definitely like a factory reset for me. And COVID basically, it was a situation where I loved what I've been doing, but I didn't want to do it forever. And so when you look at long projects, businesses, things like that, these are all like, I mean, unless you are fortunate enough to sell or something like that, like you're basically in that business for life. And so I was in a situation where like that business consumed my life, but I didn't fully like, I wasn't passionate about it. Like I loved like the shuttle service. I loved the Comic-Con. I loved all of these things, but I wasn't like 100% like passionate about it. It was something that I was doing. I did love it, but like it just wasn't really like filling that like void for me. And so for me to work, 70, 80 hours a week every week and not like absolutely love it, it just got me thinking like there's definitely other things that I could be spending my time enjoying my life and moving forward from there.
During COVID for me, because I work in the stagehand industry, like all the concerts, everything. So like my life came to a standstill, but I enjoyed the peace of quiet. I think you just kind of wanted to keep going and keep running with everything.
Unpopular opinion, I enjoy chaos. I love hecticness. Like I love a million things going on. I always, and I will repeat this, like I always have to be doing something. Like
Hmm.
I'm not like the kind of guy, like if I have a weekend off, like and I'm not doing something, like I'll get bored and literally like find things to do. Like I can't like stay still for long periods of time. That's just kind of weird, but that's just who I am.
Right. I think certain people are wired like that. Like me, if I have a day off, I'm going out skating or I'm going out doing something. I hate sitting around the house and just fiddling my fingers, I guess.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't know if it's just us 80s, 90s kids just always being out of the house whenever there's like, sunlight and things going on
Hmm.
or whatnot, but I feel like, we always have to go out and go do stuff. And so that's just always how I've been. And so I can't stay stagnant for long periods of time. I've always got to be like, okay, what's the next thing to do? What's next? What's this? What's that?
But what happened next during COVID for you?
So COVID, all right, so I got to a point where I wanted more with my life. I wanted to follow my passions. And so, just like with everybody else, for the most part with COVID, like we got back into fingerboarding. We found our own passions. For me, I've been out of the fingerboarding game for quite some time, at least a decade, and dusted off all the old tech deck ramps and found my old fingerboard and like just got back into it. And so I got back into the scene, I guess you would say. I started like getting back on Instagram and just seeing really what's out there. And I was literally blown away with like how big the fingerboarding scene was since I last was in it. I mean, there was a lot of accounts, lots of clips, lots of tutorials. There's stuff on YouTube. Like there was stuff like everywhere. And so for me, when I started fingerboarding pre-internet, there was like nothing on the internet, no clips, no videos, no tutorial. Like there was no like right now, like if you wanted to make obstacles, like there's YouTube videos that'll show you how to do it. There's fingerboarding videos that'll show you how to fingerboard, how to make fingerboards, how to do pretty much everything in the industry. And I was just like literally blown away with how like far the industry has gotten since I've been gone. And so I was looking for like hangouts or meetups or trying to find other people that fingerboard. And I came across two event flyers. So they were both on the same day and they were both on, they were just both on the same day, the same name, but one was in Wisconsin and the other one was in Indianapolis. And so it was COVID. I had pretty much nothing going on. And so I went to the Wisconsin one first, drove from Branson, Missouri, all the way to Wisconsin. Went to that event. It started at 11, and then I went there for a couple hours. This was Connor and Austin's event. RIP Connor. He's no longer with us. Sad story there. But I had a blast. I met up with them. And then I hit the tail end of the second event, which was in Indianapolis, which happened to be about 3.5 hours away. And that was ran by Colin Hudson. The fingerboarding meetup was literally called the Midwest Meetup, which is interesting. They both had the same name and the same date,
Is
but two different
Wisconsin and
cities.
Indiana and both considered Midwest though?
I want to say Wisconsin probably is.
Hmm.
I mean, it's
Interesting.
north. I don't
Right.
know how Midwest it would be, but it's definitely north. It's up there.
All
It
right.
touches
All
Canada,
right.
I think. But yeah, I had so much fun at those two events that I drove back like just hyped, like so hyped. Like I was so excited. I had so much fun. I wanted more. And so when I looked online, couldn't find anything. Of course, it was COVID. Even before COVID, I was looking for like other event flyers, seeing if there was anything even going on or even happening. And it was like some events happening. Everything was pretty much fair and far like in between. The only thing that was really consistent was Mike Snyder's Rendezvous. So that was a very consistent event. Nash was sorry for fingerboarding had pretty consistent events, but like there was very few like actual meetups, very few events really kind of happening in the scene that I could find research of. And so it got me to a point with my Comic-Con experience where like I should start events and basically drawing people together, gathering people up, getting people together and actually fingerboarding. Cause I'm like, there's no way that like I'm the only one that feels this way. And I talked to like all the people at the events and stuff, and they're like, yeah, we should do another event, but like no one's talking about doing another event anytime soon. They're like, oh, maybe next year. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait a whole year for another gather up. Like that's crazy. So that's where like the idea for USAFBL basically originated from was like, how do I get more of these in-person meetups? And didn't quite know what that looked like, but I definitely knew like this is definitely what I wanted to do. I wanted to basically figure out a way to do some sort of meetups, maybe turn them into like something big like Comic-Con-ish. But from there, like I didn't really know exactly what USFBL looked like, but I definitely knew something needed to be done.
Right. Did you have that name picked out from the get-go, or were you going to run with a different name at first?
I always I kind of had the name picked out. I don't know if it was either me or Brian OMG who actually came up with it. I knew that I wanted to start like competitions. Like I'm a very competitive person and I like the competitive aspect of it. So like I like doing like the best trick that was held there at the contest. I thought that was pretty cool. And I kind of wanted to play more on that. So I'm just like, it drew me open to like what was actually like possible. So you see stuff on Instagram, but you very rarely see it in real life. And so to see it in real life is like a whole different ball game for sure.
And
So
not just that, but like when you see it on Instagram or YouTube, people try that trick maybe like 20, 30 times to get it precise. And when you're doing it in front of a crowd, it's the pressure is on. It's a whole different ballpark.
Oh, definitely. And that's the thing. So you don't know if it took them 3 tries to get that combo, or if it took them like, 4 hours to get that combo. Like the internet's definitely, you can edit it and make it look however you want it to look, but in person, like it's a whole different ball game, and it
Right.
opens your eyes to what's actually possible, what's doable, and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So all right. So with the name, I definitely knew I wanted to start a league. So I was thinking, really, I was just thinking small. I'm just like, we need to start a league, maybe a local league. Basically just kind of gathering people together, something that people can kind of like be part of. I knew that like it would get big at some point just because of how much energy I was going to put into it. And so the ideal was basically was just to start a lot of events and kind of organize them all underneath one umbrella. And so developing a league basically was like the starting point basically for USAFBL. And so the name just kind of came about in that manner. And so when I look at it, I'm like, okay, so if we're gonna start a bunch of meetups, develop a league, put everything all under one umbrella, then it just like USAFBL, the name just it just makes the most amount of sense. And so we just rolled with it. And so we got this really cool looking badge, this USFBL logo. Brian OMG put it together, absolutely killed it in my opinion. Looks super, super official. And so from there, it just got it just mentally like I'm like, all right, we're actually moving and grooving. But
I
let's
will say that the name it flows. It sounds professional. It sounds like, it's like it just has that zing to it.
I love it. It is super long, so we shortened it with USAFBL, which is kind of a tongue twister within itself, but
Mm-hmm.
it works. It looks good, and we're rolling with it for sure.
Rolling with it.
So having an idea is one thing, and then getting it started is a whole nother ball game. And so a lot of people are like, how did you start this? Where did the money come from? How, like, just how? And just people had questions. They're just like, how does a regular guy like you just all of a sudden, like, this is, USIPL is just all you? And so I'll take you guys back on a kind of a little bit of an origin story. So we took place basically in part one. I was talking to you guys about becoming a day trader and, well, becoming a day trader, but being a day trader, messing with the stock markets, crypto markets, basically just looking at how money was basically moving at the time. COVID was definitely a very interesting place for the markets because there was literally trillions of dollars being pumped into the economy. And so the economy was hot. Basically, you can pick the worst stock and still make it big. Like there was just so much money coming into the economy that everything was just being driven up. And so it was very, very hard to mess things up basically in 2021 and 2022 if you're investing in the stock market or even in crypto. But I knew that like things were definitely moving in an upward projection. And so like we were making great money in the stock market, but I've been watching the crypto market. I've actually never invested into the crypto market before 2021. And so when I invest in things, I watch that stock for like 60 days before I even invest in it as a day trader. I have to basically analyze it, see how it moves. Every stock moves pretty much the exact same way daily. It's kind of weird, but if you break it down, like you just got to recognize the patterns and what happens during what times, during what situations, during what scenarios. And so when you watch something long enough, it's like if you people watch and you people watch at the same time at the same place in the park every single day, you're going to recognize certain people that will be jogging during that time or certain people that'll take their walks and things become very predictable. And so a lot of people are like, well, how do you day trade? Don't you risk like losing money, this and that? And I'm like, yes, you'll definitely lose some money. But when you're able to watch things for long periods of time, things become very predictable and all of a sudden your losses become very minimal. And so with this, crypto markets, I knew something was getting ready to go like just huge in the crypto market. I was thinking like 20-30% returns like on most altcoins and stuff like that. I knew something big, and 20-30% in any market is huge, by the way. Like if you can make 20-30% on anything, like you're bankrolling in the stock market. But I had no idea that what was getting ready to happen was going to happen. So I went out, I got a small business loan for 75K, and I literally put all of it on Dogecoin. And sure enough, I mean, I could have put it on anything because everything pretty much exploded, but Dogecoin in particular, like that one and Sheep, like they blew up astronomical. So put all the money on Doge. I turned 75K into just over 250,000, which is life-changing money for most people. So I was able to literally pay back the loan, pay off all of my old business debts, all of my debts, basically get a whole new just start in life. No debt, money in the bank, and I now had opportunities basically to continue working and doing the shuttle service and the Comic Con, or I can basically close everything down, liquidate everything, and basically move it into my newfound passion, which is now fingerboarding, which fingerboarding has always been a passion, but it wasn't until, like I said, I went to those two events and it just struck that fire back into me where like, this is definitely something I want to be doing. Fingerboarding and hosting events is definitely something that I wanted to be doing.
Let me ask you something really quick before we get too far. When you sunk that $75,000 into the crypto, was there a slight like worry in your mind that you might have just lost all that? Like it could have crashed and you just lost $75,000?
There was never a worry because, like I said, I've been watching. I knew it was happening. I just didn't know how much. I thought 20-30% was great. Three and a half, 300 to 400% return. Never could have predicted that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, like, for me, I'm like, I know it's going to do something around 20-30%. Realistically, I thought 50, but no one, no, like, up until this point, like, making 50% returns on anything is absolutely crazy. And so I was thinking somewhere around 50%, but realistically, I'm like, well, let's be conservative, probably 20-30%. But 20-30%, even on 75K, is still a good day. And so
So when you seen it jump up as high as you did, was it like you felt like you won the Powerball or something? Like you just couldn't believe what you seen?
it was absolutely nuts. And so here's the craziest thing is I got out of Doge at like, was it 53, 54 cents, and it got all up to like 70. I don't know, I got to look at the charts, but it got up to like in the 70s, low 70 cents. And so there was still way more that could have been made, but obviously hindsight 50, I didn't know. I'm like, dude, I'm good right now. Like
Right.
I'm looking at the account, it's like a lot of zeros. And I'm like, all right, we're just gonna pull everything out because like the thing with crypto is like you can go to sleep and you can literally lose a lot of value while you're sleeping because it never stops. And so I didn't want to wake up and be like, oh, I lost 50 grand overnight, like, type of situation, which could happen. And so I pulled it all out. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. My buddies stuck in there a little bit longer, and kudos to them. They got, higher risk tolerance than me, but me being a dedicated, very disciplined investor, I'm like, all right, well, this is, two times more than I could have ever imagined. Like, I'm good. If we make more, awesome. But like, I'm not gonna be like mad at like the situation basically. So like I can live
Right.
with myself saying, hey, there could have been way more money you could have made, but I'm perfectly happy with what I got.
Hmm. I don't think I could have sunk that kind of money in there, but dude, that's awesome that you did that and got what you got out of it.
And I mean, running businesses and stuff, I mean, with the shuttle service, I mean, we were pulling like 20, $30,000 a month in sales, which seems it could be a little bit till, some other people, and it could be a lot till, some people, but there was always like money kind of like coming through. And so like if there was a situation where like I did lose, like I could figure it out because I had access to revenue and stuff like that that could have basically made things fine as a
Right.
backup. But there wasn't a situation, like if there was a strong situation where I felt like I could have lost my money, then like I wouldn't have done it. And so,
Fair enough. You got to know what you're working with.
yeah, and you gotta know what you're working with. And like I said, I've been watching it. I've been researching it. I've been watching the news, Bloomberg, all that stuff, and I'm just like everything points to money to be made. And so I'm just like, you know what? Like I'm gonna follow my gut, and I'm glad I did.
And here we are.
Here we are. And so when there was a podcast, I think it was the Fingerspace podcast that I was in, I mentioned that I got into the industry as a tax write-off. And I don't think that people quite understood what I was going through in order for that to even make sense. So I did say that in that podcast, and I kind of got a lot of backlash on it. And I don't think people like fully understood what was happening to me and when I basically said that. And so people thought I was getting into the industry basically to try to take advantage of people, which, after listening to my story, if you guys still feel that way, I'm still sorry. But it's when you make that kind of money, you're gonna have to pay like crazy amounts of taxes on it because it's all capital gains.
Right.
And so for me, I was looking at everything as like, if I'm going to give it to the government, I have the option of either A, giving it to the government, or B, rolling it into another business venture. And so this was an opportunity for me to basically, for free, roll this into another like business venture that I'm passionate about that I basically honestly, this is what I want to do. Like, if I could start back all over again and start from scratch, I would literally not change anything. I would go through the exact same process. The process might change a little bit, but like what I've been doing wouldn't have changed. And so I would still start USAFBL. I would still put in all of the cash that I put into the industry. And I like looking back, like I don't have any actual like regrets in that aspect. And so people are like, okay, so I look at it as like, you gotta like I'm thinking big, and that's where a lot of my issues are. It's like I could start a backyard meetup like most people and host it at my local park and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm only reaching X amount of people when I do that. And for me, I'm looking at it as how do I make something that's large and can be self-sustainable? And so however you look at it, you're going to be like, it's going to require a lot of capital to reach a large amount of people. Because the goal is like, how do I reach a lot of people? How do I find other fingerboarders? Like, I knew everybody's out here, but there was nobody pulling people out. And so over the last 3 or 4 years, I look back and I see all these events popping up, helping people start events, and I'm seeing all of these fingerboarders coming out of the woodwork. And I'm just like, this is what we needed before COVID. Like we should have been having this like years ago, even a decade ago,
Hmm.
type of stuff.
But nobody really had that I wouldn't say ambition, but had the opportunity to do what you took off and started doing.
And that's where the thing is. And so there's a lot of mental risk because, you're doing something that no one has basically ever done. There's a monetary risk, where, even if you found a spot, you got some parks, obstacles, and stuff like that together, put some money into it that, no one would show up. And so there's a lot of risk and a lot of people, especially in this day and age, you're like, no one wants to take unnecessary risk. And so if people are fine doing whatever they're doing right now, then like, why take the risk of trying to set something up for, possible failure?
Right.
And I think it takes a real trailblazer, like a real just driven person just to be able to put that foot forward, walking into the unknown and basically seeing if things are even doable, things are even possible. Because all of the stuff that I'm doing, no one has really done. And if they have done it, they were unsuccessful at it.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. Kind of like to go along with what you're saying, you did this on such a big scale. Even when I throw like those little events I throw, it's kind of like a risk, and you worry about how many people actually show up just for a single one-off event like this. I couldn't imagine like a 10 city stop or tour like the
It's it's wild. So for me at this point, I've got a pocket full of cash. I've got some dreams. I got some ambitions. The problem is I have nobody that I can basically learn from. So the only real events that I knew that were happening were Nash was sorry for fingerboarding. He's done a lot of stuff in the past. Mike Snyder's done a lot of stuff in the past, but this is COVID. And so nobody's really doing anything. And so Mike Snyder hasn't done anything because of COVID. And Nash ended up doing a sorry for fingerboarding event at Grinders. And I actually flew out there and went to that event, talked with Nash, talked to a lot of the locals, got up there, like just kind of pick their brains a little bit about like, the industry and events and what's happening and what's going on out there. And I did the same thing with Nostalgia FB. I went to the very first Sin City Sesh in Las Vegas. I flew out to Denver, Colorado. I talked to Mike Sherrill with Cube. We actually did a podcast on that if you want to go even further in depth with how that went. That's a really good episode as well. But picked his brain. He actually had a physical storefront. And so I mean he was able to give me a lot of insights. He basically told me like he loves what I'm doing, but like what I'm doing is absolutely nuts. And he gave me a lot of good pointers and a lot of great feedback and stuff like that. Some of it I should have definitely listened more on, and then some of the stuff I just had to learn on my own. But outside of like these few people, like there really wasn't a lot of people that I can actually like learn from and try to figure out how to go about doing what I'm trying to do. And so there's just a lot of just lack of blueprints for it. So like right now, if anybody wanted to start an event or even start a tour, like, there's me, myself, a lot of other like now event holders and stuff that you can basically learn from. But like at the time, there was like not a lot of people I can learn from.
Trailblazing.
I know, and just a lot of risk and a lot of I mean, it was very I look back and even my girlfriend, fiance, now wife, she's just like, that's kind of ballsy.
What'd she think whenever you were started talking about doing all this? Was she kind of like on board with it, or she just kind of thought it was crazy?
She thought it was kind of crazy. And then I told her, which I'll tell you guys as well, this is kind of what my mindset was, is either I start this and I fail and I've got enough fingerboarding parts, stuff, gear, merchandise to literally last me for the rest of my life, or this thing actually becomes successful and I've got something that I can now do with a lot of people, friends, family, just colleagues, just everybody that like, that's in the industry for the rest of my life. And so for me, it's a win-win. And so you only got for me one shot. Like I could never redo this today and start today what I'm doing like right now. Like it's just not possible. I don't have the resources. I don't have just the stuff to basically do it. And so I literally was like at the right place at the right time in my life to be able to start this. And so if I didn't do it then, it would have never gotten done.
Right. The stars had to align for that to open up.
Literally. And so I don't think a lot of people even realize like if I would have waited another year, like I may not even be able to do it. And so like I was driven, I had resources, like I had everything literally going for me. And so for me, I was excited to basically be able to start moving this forward and start moving it forward in a very fast manner. And I think a lot of the industry was kind of shook by how fast and how aggressively I was basically making USFBL and starting it and just growing it because we're like the hype kings. I feel like for fingerboarding industry, like we hype things up a lot, maybe overhyping. I think a lot of people might be like, you guys kind of overhype stuff. And so before we even get to like the first events and stuff, I mean, I'll kind of talk to you guys on the process of getting from now I know what I'm wanting to do and having the resources to do it and getting to like us to the very first event. So the very first thing that I did was I knew that this was going to be a long-term thing. I knew that I wanted to basically just this was going to be it. I was going to put 100% of all of my time, my energy, my emotions, like everything I had into USAFBL. So the first thing that I did is I went and I got USAFBL trademarked. It was a very, very long process. I had to hire a lawyer, a patent lawyer, basically, to get all the paperwork and stuff situated for me. Anybody that's interested in trademarks, it is definitely worth the money to get a registered trademark. It takes about 18 months. For me, it costed me about 5 grand. The problem with the trademark paperwork is you can literally miss one thing and it can set you back a whole year because the process is very tedious and very time consuming. And so if your process isn't 100% to the T, there's things that will delay it and it can literally take you like years to
Wow.
finally complete. And so for me, getting it registered trademark for the brand, for the company, for the logo, for the like everything was just like we had it needed to be done. And
Did you have any of
so,
those setbacks you're talking about, or was yours pretty smooth all the way through?
well, I hired a lawyer who that's what
Yeah.
he does. And so we were able, I mean, it took 17, almost 18 months. And so, I mean, it was a process for sure. But once that paperwork, that patent, the paperwork that comes back for it, and you're just like, you own that, like you own the IP that goes underneath it. It's very, very rewarding, very satisfying for sure.
Right. Is that like a permanent thing? Is my stupid question of the day. Is that like a permanent thing, or do you have to do renewals on that? You like
It's
when you
a
lose?
no, it's a permanent thing. So like once you
Okay.
have that, like unless you opt to close it or let it go, like you never really have to mess around with it. Like you've always got it. You can always
Gotcha.
add to
Gotcha.
it, but you can't, no one can ever take that. So like if someone's doing anything with USFBL that I don't like, we can literally just send out cease and desist letters and stuff. And so like it's one of those things like you now like control like everything now for USFBL, which is kind of a it's a it's rewarding for sure. And I love having that like just control, knowing that like this is our brand and we can do that like, however we feel necessary.
That makes sense. With I've been thinking about getting like something like that going on for my stunt group name, just so we can kind of. I didn't realize it was such a long process, but I do need to start looking into stuff like that.
It's a definitely a long process. And like I said, if you're not looking to have that brand, that company that for 5 plus years, that I wouldn't even bother with it. Like I said, it takes a year and a half just to from start to finish if you go through all the proper paperwork and procedures, basically, just to get it. If there's any holdups, it can drastically take longer.
Right.
And so if you're not a long-term person, then like I wouldn't necessarily entertain that idea. It's also very expensive to get it done as well. So lot that comes along with it. But anybody that's interested in it, definitely hit me up and I can definitely put you on game for it for sure. But the other things are is I knew that like I wanted to build a community around just the lack of events and just kind of information. Fingerboarding up until like we came on was very unorganized. Like people were doing things, yes, but there wasn't a place, there still really isn't a place to really go to get like verified like information besides like these fingerboarding groups that have been created. And so I went out and I started fingerboarding groups for figuring out how to build obstacles and fingerboarding parks and how to actually make fingerboards. Another one for like actually fingerboarding where like, you learn like different tips, tricks, trying to figure out how to do those, just very hard like nollie heels and things like that. And so I started all these groups to basically like start building communities and putting people together and being able to share that information because information for me, I feel like should be free.
Hmm.
There's a lot of gatekeeping in the community, and I feel like gatekeeping is what's holding the community back. And so, unpopular opinion, I guess you guys can fight me in the comments if you feel otherwise, but I do know that, there needs to be restrictions on gatekeeping. I feel like only like people that redeem themselves to be hardworking and wanting to basically start doing things for the community should have access to that information. But
See, I can't say on like like the products or anything of that aspect, but if you know how to do a trick and someone is willing to learn it and you could teach them, I would definitely say that you should not gatekeep that information. Like if you have the ability to teach somebody how to do something, you shouldn't not teach them because you feel like you can have that trick versus them, if that makes any sense.
I think that goes for tricks. I think that goes for obstacle making. I mean, I think that goes for a lot of things. People don't understand that like there is more demand for products than there is actual products. So some of my favorite companies, we're talking about Beast Pants, we're talking about Double Joint, we're talking about um, all your favorite deck makers. No one has a shop that's fully open 365 days out of the year. They're all doing drops. They're just basically all launching products in very sporadic periods of time. And so
Hmm.
you have to be able to catch these drops if you're looking for something in that particular person that's making those products. And so, like, right now, if I wanted a deck from Double Joint, I have to wait for them to do a drop and hope that I'm able to get something from that drop. And so, like, when all of the industry is basically drop culture, it's gotten to the point now where like you can't get what you want when you want it. And that's been a problem. And as more people like get into the industry, that's going to become even more of a problem. And so,
I even see some brands that used to be like full time on their sites and stuff. You just go in there buy a board whenever. That I guess because so many people is getting it that they've been switching it to like smaller drops and stuff on a larger scale just to keep up with demand so they don't get overran with all the work they have to do to provide those.
yeah, it's becoming a serious problem that I've noticed in the industry. It's just that there's just not a lot of full-time product makers. And so there's not, I mean, no one's making obstacles basically to order like on a large scale. Black River is probably going to be like your only real company that's basically making large amount of obstacles to order like that. You can just buy them whenever. Parks are still to order. So if you was to order a park from Black River, like they're not going to have it on store. Like they're going to make it when you purchase it. And I don't know anybody else in the industry that's just got parks laying around ready to sell. And
Right.
so that's become like, everybody wants a park, but there's literally no parks to be had. Like, everybody who has one isn't getting off of them and no one's really making new ones. And so there's just this huge demand for parks, for obstacles and stuff like that. I think that fingerboarding decks are pretty widely available, but they're not widely available through the company that you're looking for. And so there's just like this huge like indiscrepancies basically like in the fingerboarding industry as far as products being made versus products that are actually needed.
Yeah, I think that's the good thing about those fingerboard pages that a lot of people sell their used boards. So if you can't get them new, you can get them used if the price is right. I see some of those prices going really high though, unnecessarily
Yeah,
high in my
that
opinion.
hurts my that literally brings a tear to my eye when I'm seeing stuff like that. The resale market just going crazy and people selling things for almost twice as much, three times as much used with blemishes and all kinds of stuff from being used. And like, it's just
Well,
like,
the
what's
worst
going
part is when
on?
you see people paying for it too, though.
And they
They feel
are
like,
because they don't have
man,
options. It's like, if you want this deck, this brand, this obstacle from this person, that makes it, I mean, what are you going to do? Like,
exactly.
that's the reality. It's like, what are you going to do? And so
Yeah.
it's a process. And so with the story of parks, I mean, I knew I wanted to host like all of these events, but I also know that like you need parks at events. And I mean, you can't just, roll up to Walmart and go pick up a park. Like, every one of these parks are going to be handmade, handcrafted. And so for season one, like we met up, like I already went out to Denver, Colorado. And I talked to, Mike Sherrill with this Cubeco, and they've got like the largest collection of park makers in like any area that I'm aware of, basically. They've got, Renegade, Dark Matter, Finger Trolls, the Foul Fingers. They got all kinds of people out there just making parks and doing things and like, and so I'm like, hey, like I talked to Cube and I'm like, I need some parks for the store. And he's like, dude, we got people, like we got lots of people. Like I'll send the bat signal out. And so he got a few of the locals and stuff where I was able to come up there and like literally buy some parks off of them. And I met up with Dave Ware and I found him through one of my groups. He was just starting out and I saw all his obstacles and stuff and they were like absolutely fire. And I'm like, you ever thought about making parks? He's like, I've been thinking about it, but I don't know anybody that would actually like buy parks. And I'm like, bro, I need like three or four, probably more like large scale parks. And he's like, really? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, dude, I'll put a deposit down and like, we can go over some of the designs and stuff. And so like he literally made four huge scaled parks just for me for the tour.
And
And
those parks
so
went on to become a staple for your tours and for your like that's some of the parks that people go out of their way just to skate.
yeah, and that's what's crazy. And I still have them all too. So like I still have those parks, the Coffin Grim Reaper Park that everybody loves. I'll have to put a picture up in the ordeal. But it was I mean, they're definitely like well known in the community because we've been touring with them for 3 years now.
Yeah, that coffin one's one of my favorite ones you got too.
Yeah, everybody's like, dude, I gotta have it. How much? How much? I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can get rid of it. Like it's literally a piece of art.
It is too. Picture.
Definitely. And so we ended up acquiring all the parks. So we went all the way out. I met up with Dave where he hosted a event showcasing his parks and ended up picking all those up, bringing them back to Branson, Missouri. And so we had roughly about 30 parks. And when I say 30, they're not like full scale. I had several full scale ones, but a lot of them were like, smaller ones, half pipe, stuff like that. So we had like 30 pieces that you could easily sesh. And we basically got ready to bring them on tour. The big thing is how are we going to transport all of these parks? And that became the brain scratcher. Like you're just scratching your head trying to figure this all out. And so we ended up buying a 7 by 16 foot trailer. And I wasn't going to wrap this trailer. Like I was just going to leave it plain white. And Brian OMG is like, dude, you gotta wrap it. You gotta wrap it. People need to see that logo. People need to see you driving, all the impressions and stuff like that. Like, it's definitely a wasted opportunity. And I'm like, all right, I'll shell out the money. We'll get it wrapped. And I want to say like this trailer probably became very, very iconic in the fingerboarding industry. Like whenever we do events and stuff like that, like the amount of people that'll take pictures with them in front of this trailer and stuff like that is absolutely amazing.
I can't tell you how many times I see you repost on your story like people standing next to that trailer.
Yeah. And for me, I'm like, it's just a trailer, but everybody else, like, this is the coolest thing on the planet, And I'm just like, all right, like, I like it. I'm here for it. And so when they see the trailer parked out front, like, they know it's real. A lot of people are like, how did you pick your cities for the first season, the first tour season one? And a lot of people, it was kind of difficult. So my goal isn't to establish communities from scratch, like start them. Like I'm not going to start communities from scratch. So like I'm not going to be like, oh, there's a city in North Dakota, and I'm gonna like, you know what? Like I'm going to start a community there. Our goal isn't to start communities. Our goal is to build already existing communities. So I don't have the resources to start a community from scratch as much as I would love to just start communities all over the United States and Canada. Like, I just don't have the resources to do that. And so we look at communities that have already been started or already established. And then basically from there, we can build upon those communities and strengthen them and make those larger. That's always kind of been like the goal for USAFBL. So USFBL really won't just sanction themselves in a spot where like there isn't an already existing community.
So some of these places that you kind of sought after, did they already have events going on, or you just knew that there's fingerboarders there, or like what
Yeah,
drew you to it?
so that's basically what we did. We found four cities. We found Indianapolis, which I already went to an event here for that. So I knew that there was people here and there was people probably in surrounding areas. We went to Las Vegas, which, Nostalgia Upbeat is definitely responsible for us being at Las Vegas for season one and for season two. Then we went to Denver, Colorado, which we talked to QCO. He has the storefront there. And so, they're definitely responsible for us being at the Denver location for, I think, 3 years in a row. And then Chicago, I knew that there was people there, but I didn't see any events. And so in the groups that I run and that I basically hold, like I see a lot of fingerboarders out in the northern Illinois, Chicago, Wisconsin area. And so like I knew based off of the very first event that I went to in Wisconsin that there was people there, but I knew that I didn't want to go all the way to Wisconsin. And so I looked at Chicago. I knew there was people relatively in Chicago, and I knew that Wisconsin people would also drive the hour, hour and a half to go to Chicago. And so we picked those four cities for those reasons.
An hour and a half drive is nothing.
Not for
That's like,
fingerboarders
yeah,
now.
yeah, that's like a blink of an eye, really.
Yeah, especially for an event. Like I think most people would drive an hour, hour and a half for a fingerboarding event if they're serious about fingerboarding for sure. So
Right.
hosting those four cities made sense at the time, especially for, season one, just kind of testing the waters and stuff.
Going back to your hour and a half thing, I drive like 45 minutes to an hour for work every day. So like that really is not that far of a drive.
No, it's the same. I'm in Indy. My job's 45 minutes away as well. It's on the other side of the city, but it's for us, it's just a not a bad commute for sure. I mean, I think the furthest I've driven was like 8 hours, I think,
Mhm.
from Branson, Missouri to Dallas, Texas.
Wait for an event or for a
Yeah, for an
job.
event. Yeah.
Right. I think my longest is probably Rendezvous last year. It was about
You
what
drove
six.
that?
Yeah, I drove that.
Ooh, that's crazy.
Dude, background story. So when I went up there, my girlfriend wanted to go out of her way to go to this to Bucky's on the way. She goes, it's gonna add like a half an hour to the trip. It was normally like I think it would have been like a 16-hour drive, but we went down to this Bucky's in like the bottom part of Kentucky. It ended up adding like 5 or 6 hours onto the trip, and we drove the whole thing straight.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was
For the
horrible.
record, Bucky's, which I like to be fancy with it, I call it Boosie's.
Boosie's.
Boosie's. So Boosie's is definitely worth the drive. If we ever pass a Boosie's, which they just built one, a new one in Springfield, Missouri, which is on the way back to my parents' house. And so we stop there now every time. So we got one that's pretty local to us now, but definitely worth it. And for those that don't know what it is, it's like the largest gas station on the planet. It's got literally a
It's
hundred gas
huge.
station pumps. Inside it's like the size of a Walmart. I mean, it's like absolutely huge. They make their own jerky. They've got like these pulled pork sandwiches. They got their own bakery, merch. They make their own jerkies. They've got a coffee bar, a slushy bar. I mean, like everything that you can think that a gas station has, they have it, and it's absolutely huge. By
There's
the
a
way,
cult
this is
following.
not a Boosie sponsored post. Um, but if you have the opportunity to go, like definitely go to one.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so we definitely looked at those four cities, and I'm like, all right, we're going to start off with these four cities, see how it goes. We can always add more cities, but I think doing a four-city national tour and having the cities that spread out made a lot of sense. So we had basically two West Coast stops and two East Coast stops, and so it made a lot of sense. And for season one, we did Chicago as the very first stop, and we've been hyping this stop up, the whole tour. We've been hyping the hell out of it up for like months. And it got to the point where now we're pulling up to Chicago and it's time to basically show people that we're not all talk and we're the real deal. And so we did not think about the load in and load out. So when we brought the crew, we had me, my mom. So which if you ever met my mom, she's awesome, but she's just a little thing. And so she's not I mean, she'll carry some parks, don't get me wrong, but like she's not very, very strong. And this walk for Chicago, man, it was like a quarter-mile walk. It was at the Doubletree Hotel by Hilton, and our venue room was the basement level of the hotel. So we had to walk the parks from outside into the hotel, down a service freight elevator, which half the parks didn't even fit in the service freight elevator. So we actually had to walk them down some stairs and stuff, and then get to the basement level, and then truck all the way back to the truck and do the entire thing all over again, like 50 times. We
Was
didn't
it
have,
worth it?
all right, so this was so exhausting. Like, I finished this like stop, and it was so overwhelmingly exhausting with the load in and load out that I was like this close to literally canceling the rest of the tour. Like I was just not in shape enough to mess with that. And I'm like, if this is every single tour stop, I can't do it. Like I'm not built for that. And so I want to give a huge, huge shout out to Cody Mexico, Dave and Michael Ware, and Bryce McNally, because they came up early to the Chicago first stop and they helped me load and unload this trailer. And they are literally the only reasons why that event even went down. Because after like three trips, like I was done. Like I can't do it. And then they like magically just showed up and I'm like, yeah, you need any help? And I'm like, hell yes, I need help. Like,
Let's go.
right. Because I'm just like, man, I'm pooped, and like we just made like three trips, and like the trailer didn't even look like it even got like any progress was made, and I'm just like, there's just no way. This is bigger than all of us. So like, they saved the tour, and they definitely made that stop happen because we wouldn't have gotten it all done in time to even like host the event because we were still stuck like making all these trips back and forth to the trailer, and like they saved me. They saved the tour. They saved my ass. They saved everything. Like huge shout out to you guys. Not all heroes wear capes, but
Some of
those
them
four
just
guys,
fingerboard.
man. Yeah, I know. I know. So definitely, definitely in your debt for sure. But at the event, man, like overall, like we killed it. I think we had like 80 something people at the very, very
Wow.
first event. And it was a banger, man. Like it was a banger of an event. Like most people have never seen, no one's seen that many parks in one place unless you went to rendezvous. And we got a lot of like fingerboarding edits, pictures, stories, and like we were hyping it up beforehand, and then like everybody kind of like started hyping it up for us at that point, and then like from then like I knew like it was on. We were definitely on to something for sure.
Wait, so it was just you and your mom doing all the
Me,
parks?
my mom, my season one video editor, which is Emmanuel. I can't pronounce his last name. It's Nawaka. It's we call him Emmanuel. That's his first name. And
Mhm.
then Tim, which was our season one photographer. And so Tim, he's a photographer. He definitely wasn't about the load in, load out life, so we didn't really get much help from him. Emmanuel kind of helped us a little bit, but like he didn't show up until like an hour or so before the event, which is what he was supposed to do. And so like we couldn't like that was literally basically just me and my mom and my wife Vicky. I think she was there as well. And that was like our load in team. It was just us three trying to figure out how to make all these trips. And so when I saw Cody and Dave and Michael and Bryce, like I'm like, dude, like I need you guys. They helped me out. They saved us. So couldn't have been more just happy with the event, the turnout. Everything pretty much went flawlessly. We had uh we had just so much good positive feedback from that. And so Vegas, we killed it. Denver, we also killed it. And then Indianapolis, like we absolutely killed those stops as well. And so after the first season, like we had all of these parks. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do with all of these parks? And so that's where we kind of had the conversation of a storefront. And so we're looking at it and we're like, all right, if we're going to have to pay to store all this stuff. And so we're also looking at, if we were to do a storefront, we have to pay for a storefront. And so for me, I'm like, does the cost of storing all these parks and the cost of the storefront kind of make sense? And so like, I'm still sitting with, decent amount of cash still left from, all of my day trading and stuff like that. Anybody who understands business, like we lost six figures, like basically trying to do season one, just the tour by itself. So the turnouts were great. But like people don't understand, like I had to buy a brand new 7 by 16 foot trailer. We had to build custom shelves in that trailer. Anybody that knows during COVID, like the cost of wood is still expensive, but like there's 3 grand worth of wood shelves in this trailer, plus the trailer. We also had to rent a truck We had to buy all these parks. Like we're out like lots and lots of money. We've got insurance, we've got the cost of the venues, we've got the travel, we got videographers, photographers, all that like being poured into this very first season before we even made a single dollar from the actual tour.
I don't think people realize too how much it costs to rent these venues out.
Yeah, and so those venues, especially the Vegas one, that Vegas venue was like $2,500 for the day, which is not cheap. And so people are like, "Well, how come it costs so much?" And I'm like, "Because the venues that we hosted, they're expensive. They're the space that we needed to put that many parks into a venue. They're wedding venues basically. And so like the problems that USFBL has is that we've got to rent banquet halls, convention centers, wedding venues, basically type like venues to have that kind of space. And so we're not a wedding venue. We don't bring in the revenue basically to support these type of venues. And so it became a very upside down tour from season one, mainly because of all the equipment and the venue, because we didn't have all the tables, chairs, all that stuff that comes along with it and stuff. And so like we had to rent these larger banquet halls that could already supply us with all of those necessities. And so it became a very upside down tour from day one. Which I didn't get into this to try to make a bunch of money. I get into this to build onto something that would last for a lifetime. And that was me. Like I knew, I've already, I've been an entrepreneur. I've already known like how these things work. Like I knew like the first 3 years, like I'm not even trying to even like make like a profit. I'm just trying to basically get ourselves situated, build that foundation, and basically build something that will just continue to be sustainable over the long term. Because everything that we're doing is still unproven. And so even when we set up season one, that first tour, those four cities, like everything that we did, it was unproven. Like no one's really done that. Tech Deck supposedly has done something like that. But I mean, they're a large corporation and they got very, very deep pockets. And so, if they're taking losses, they can, it's all marketing for all as far as they're concerned.
I
And
could be
so
wrong, but I think Tech Deck did a lot of stuff with like X Games or one of those things where they just set up shop at a, an already established event and they just threw up some parks or something there.
that's what I've heard. And like I said, Tech Deck for them, that's all marketing.
Hmm.
And so like for them, this is a marketing campaign. And so they got marketing dollars they can dedicate it towards marketing, stuff like that. And so for me, what I'm doing, which is obviously completely separate from marketing, it's a whole different ballgame.
Right, exactly.
And so we're looking at the storefront, and I'm like, Branson, Missouri is definitely not a place to start. It doesn't have an existing community. So I'm like, I can't place this storefront in my hometown or really even close by. And so the closest Midwest state that I know that has a already existing community was Indy. So Indianapolis was going to be the spot. People are like, well, why the Midwest? And I'm like, well, I live in the Midwest. I'm familiar with the Midwest, and I love the Midwest. So like, let's stay where you're familiar, where you love stuff like that. We got the seasons, we got colors, foliage, all that cool stuff. So we moved to Indianapolis. So me and the wife, like, we set up a storefront out here in Indy called the USAFBL Fingerboard headquarters.
I remember when you were setting that up, I think I was one of the people that came up and helped you
Yeah, you helped us
start.
unload and set
Yep.
everything up. Yeah.
Man, that was so long ago thinking about it.
I know. It seems like forever ago. It's only like, a year and a half since we closed. So I'm like, that's crazy.
But you
Time
set it
flies.
up in 21.
Yeah, we set it up September 2021.
Wow.
Then we kept it open for about a year and a half, and then we closed it December of 2022.
That don't dang. That was a long time ago.
I know.
Dude, time is flying recently. It's
It
been going
is.
so fast.
It is absolutely flying. And so, yeah, we had the storefront for about 15 months. It was probably the largest fingerboarding only storefront ever that I'm aware of. About 3,300 square feet. I think that's probably what did us in is the fact that the space was so large, but it was kind of on the bad side of town. So the property rent wasn't that expensive, but it was hard. It was hard keeping that open. I learned a lot of valuable lessons with the storefront, how to make it work. We talk about it extensively in the Mike Sherrill this podcast. So if you guys want to know more about running a fingerboarding storefront, stuff like that, that episode, I'll probably put it above my head here in the video edit. But yeah, it's there was a lot of lessons that had to be learned, inventory management, things like that, things that, retail it should be retail 101, but the fingerboarding industry is different because all of the fingerboarding products are basically made by hand. And a lot of people, if you place an order with a company, it could take, 3 or 4 weeks to get those products and stuff in. And so retail happens fast. Fingerboarding, unfortunately, is a longer process. And so a lot of things that happen there. But I mean, overall, like my experience having that storefront, being able to like fingerboard every single day, definitely like one of the happier points of my life. It was definitely stressful, I'm not gonna lie, but like I think my happiness kind of overwhelms the stressfulness. But we eventually like we had to close the storefronts. We had some issues with I think I don't want to put this 100% on Colin Hudson, but there was Colin, he was buying stuff from my storefront. And then he was basically taking pictures of that merchandise, and then he was basically scamming people on the internet. And so people were associating him and me and my storefronts with the scam. And it definitely hurt the storefronts a lot. I could definitely tell like sales were down, people coming into the store, stuff like that was down. There was definitely a stigma around what he was doing. I mean, the fingerboarding industry is really quick to basically hang people out to dry for scamming in the industry. And I don't want to say it's 100% on him because obviously, I've got failures on my side as well. But I think the nail in the coffin was definitely that whole fiasco. And so, for
Right.
the
I
record,
will I will say this, and not going into too much detail, but I had a buddy that used to go up there all the time. And with Colin, he was telling him, what I guess they got into a disagreement about merch or something that he was scamming him on. And he goes like, "Yeah, you need to come up here to USAFBL. I'll kick your ass right up here any day." Like he was like labeling that kind of shenanigans with your store.
yeah, and it was putting my store in a bad light. And you've got, people with kids, like parents, they've got kids that are, 12, 13, teenagers, stuff like that. And then if they ever caught wind of that, they're not going to have their kid in a place where something like that could go down, stuff like that. And so, safety became an actual issue and stuff like that, even though safety was never an issue. But Colin made it out to, it was just a bad thing all the way around. I honestly couldn't recoup from that, and definitely one of the main reasons why like the store ended up having to close. Because we started off really, really strong, and then the summer tour definitely caused issues as well. Because while I'm on tour, guess what? Nobody's at the storefront, so the store's got to close. And you can't really be
Right.
like, well, you can keep the store open. Well, like all of our parks are gone, all the merch is gone. So like you basically got a half empty store with nothing really in it. And so during the summer, the store closed. And so, there's no sales going there, but I still had to pay the rent, the utilities, all that stuff. And so there was just a lot of things that happened between the summer tour and then the whole Colin fiasco. And then that's basically what ended up happening. It's just kind of did us in. So just never really recoup.
You got to be careful who you put your faith in.
Yeah, lessons were definitely learned for sure. And so, just, for the record, like I was never involved with the actual, like, whatever he had going on in his spare time and what he was doing. That's completely separate from what I've got going on, what I'm doing, stuff like that. Like, I'm not risking my entire life savings in the last 2 years of, everything that I put into it to literally start scamming people. Like, for what? And so
Right.
for a couple $100, it makes no sense. And so it's just it's just a tragedy really as to how things kind of played out.
I will say if you get your eventually down the line, if you get your storefront going again, you should think about the idea of like selling actual skateboards. Like, I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand, and you'll have a lot more traction going through your store that way.
I do. Like I been thinking about it, but like my problems are is that I I'm pretty much only I've never really been a skateboarder. And so like I would have to kind of bring someone in on the skateboarding side just to keep up with what people are even into. Because a lot of the brands that I grew up with, they're not even brands anymore, like in the
Right.
current day. And then you've got new companies, like Shane O'Neill's company, like April and Girl and all these other new brands. And I'm like, for me, not being like, a skateboarder, like to be up to date with what's cool, what people want, stuff like that. That's information that like you can't really been told. You got to know someone or be literally part of the culture to really understand it. And so for me, that's
Exactly.
risky because I don't know enough about that culture to be able to just go all in on it. I know, I know. People are
Uh,
like, that's crazy. And I'm like, it's nuts. It's nuts. So apparently, taking an SBA loan out and putting it all on Deutsch is not risky, but starting a skateboarding store, that's where I draw the line.
I was kind of thinking that, but I didn't want to say it.
It's all about what you know. And so
Right.
some things I know, and I'm like, yeah, I can make this work. And then there's other things like I have no clue or not enough information. And so the last thing that anybody needs to do is to get involved in the things they know nothing about. It never ends out well. Like I've never known anybody that's just like, I want to try to land this plane with no actual flight experience. I can land this plane. Like, no, it's going to end terribly
Right. Well, that's what video games are for. You'll learn it eventually.
eventually. So, but yeah, we definitely looking into season two. This is where like things got exciting. So season one, we had great turnouts. Like it was during COVID, and so we didn't know this. This is hindsight 2020. So 2021 season tour, we no one was doing events. There was nothing really going on. And so like our very first events were like up here. Like we had so much hype, there was a lot going on and like nothing really going on in the industry. And so like people came out to the events and super, super great turnouts. 2022, we went all out based on the information that, we're going to have the same level of turnouts and stuff for these new events. And so we went all out. We did 12 cities. So we launched a 12 city national tour. We did Chicago, Denver, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Tustin, California, Montebello, California, Atlanta, Detroit, Philly, Dallas, Minneapolis, and Indianapolis. And people were stoked. People were absolutely stoked. So we had, I didn't even talk about where the Black River Parks even came into the mix.
Let's backtrack then.
Yeah, let's backtrack to that. So we had all this like crazy, crazy cash. And so, like, with anybody with crazy cash and a passion who's always wanted to skate some Black River Parks, I'm like, I've gotta order these. Like, I gotta get on this. And so I email Black River. I'm like, Black River team. My name's Levine Cunningham with USAFBL. And I want a G6 and a G8 and a G13 and a G15. I don't know. I want what else you got back there? Like whatever you guys got back there, like let me know. I want it
How did
all.
that email, like, how did they respond to that?
And so I'm like, I bet you, like, they're like, dude, there's some guy wanting to buy like all of these parks. And I don't know. I don't know like what the conversation was behind the scenes. Like I probably should get them on the podcast and just be like, yeah, like who answered this email? Like what was the thought process behind it and stuff. And so they sent me an invoice. I don't know if I should share this invoice or not, but it was expensive. It
I'm
was
curious.
definitely expensive. So I'll find it. I'll find it for you guys. I'll throw it on the screen for all the watchers. But yeah, they're like, yeah, we're gonna need X amount of dollars. You can PayPal it here. And then I'm like, all right, cool, bet. And so I send it off, and then they send me an email back saying, wow, we're gonna get started on working on all these parks. And I'm like, awesome. So I'm like stoked. I'm like, yes. And so they're making all the parks, and this is for season one. So I was supposed to have all these parks ready for season one, and I was supposed to take them on tour. I built all these custom shelves thinking that the parks were going to be certain dimensions. And so I definitely made a massive mistake because I made the shelves not tall enough and not wide enough for these Black River parks. So when we got the Black River parks in, we I should probably show you the link for like us doing the unboxing and stuff for it, but it's absolutely crazy. So these Black River parks are absolutely massive. So if you guys have never been to any of my events or never like been to rendezvous and seen like a Black River park, like these parks are like literally 3.5 feet, almost 4 feet wide, and they're literally all 8 feet 8 inches long, like monsterish parks. And so we've already built all the shelvings and stuff. And I'm like, these parks literally will not fit on the shelves. And I've already told everybody I bought all these parks and we're going to take them on tour. And I'm like, it's in the middle of the season for 2021. And I'm like, I don't have time to tear all these shelves down, rebuild all new shelves just for these parks. And so we didn't take them on the 2021 tour, but we did take them on the 2022 tour, which honestly probably worked better because people already had the opportunity to skate like 30 parks with the season one. Now, 2022, they've got Black River parks. And so, 90% of America has never skated on a Black River park. And so, like, this was definitely a very big ordeal. And we're touring this to 12 different cities from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast.
If you have a picture of the back of that truck or your little thing that you pulled behind, post a picture of that because I've seen inside it before and it is packed. Like you could when you get everything in there, you could barely fit anything else in there.
Yeah, we specially measured everything for the trailer. Like I needed a bigger trailer, but I didn't realize how large everything was. And so like if I'd have known like Black River Parks were almost 9 feet long, like I would have definitely stepped up to like an 8.5 by 20 foot trailer, like instead of a 7 by 16. And so I thought a 16 foot trailer was all I really needed. And then come to realize that like I need a bigger trailer now. And so I'm like, that's nuts. Yeah, I'll definitely have to take a picture or show like I think I made a TikTok of it, but anyways, like I'll definitely have to post that in here for sure. But yeah, it was definitely a journey. So yeah, season two, we had all the Black River parks plus all the old season one parks, and like it was amazing. We went all over the country. We probably did the most amount of stops in 1 week. I don't think anybody else has really done anything on the level that we did. What we did 5 events in 7 days.
That's exhausting. Just the traveling part alone, let alone everything else
Yeah.
involved in that.
So we were actually gone for a total of 13 days on the 13, 11 days. We were gone for 11. No, it was literally 13 days. So 13 days on the road. We went from Indianapolis when we drove to the first stop, Denver, then down to Phoenix, then to Vegas. Then we went to Tustin, California and Montebello, California. And we did those 5 stops in 7 days,
That's crazy.
back
How many
to
miles
back
do you
to
think you
back.
how many miles do you think you sunk into that tour? Just that season two.
I couldn't even tell you. I know it's a lot. And then we did a 3-day drive from Los Angeles all the way back to Indianapolis, which absolutely brutal.
And another thing you're talking about for all the expenses on the tour, I don't think you mentioned the gas prices because I'm sure that truck's not
Oh, it gets like 9 miles to the
right.
gallon.
Exactly. That's ridiculous.
And then the West Coast at that time in 2022, like the West Coast had gas that was literally like $7 a gallon. Like absolutely insane.
$7 to drive 9 miles.
Yes. And people are like, how come it costs so much? And I'm like, dude, it's $2,500 in gas for me to leave Indianapolis, do that entire 13-day trek and back just in gas.
Yeah,
We're not talking about food. We're not talking about hotel. We're not talking about nothing. Like, we're just talking just
just
straight
gas.
gas. Yeah. And the fact that I had to buy like 2 weeks worth of socks and underwear so I didn't have to wash anything while I was on the road.
Is that a guy thing? Because every time I go on tour, or like wherever I go, I always get just like socks and underwear, and when I'm done, I throw them away.
I keep mine, but I buy them just like I buy a bunch of it just so I know that like I don't have to worry about it. Like
Yeah.
that's just I don't know. Maybe it is a guy thing. I don't know. But moving on.
Moving on. Shout out TJ Maxx there.
Oh man. So we finished the 2022 summer tour and we had issues. USAFBL had issues. So we were doing the summer tour, which is awesome. The summer tour is phenomenal. But the problem with the summer tour is that it is only a 2 month block of time. So we'll hype it up a couple months before. Then you have the actual tour for 2 months, and then you have maybe 2 weeks after the tour. And then USFBL is completely irrelevant. Like we're not producing any new events. Like there's nothing going on with the actual like company or the brand outside of the tour. And so for me, I'm like, it's crazy. We spend all this time, money, and energy to only be relevant 2 months out of the year. And so it became an issue where we needed to fill in these 10 months of gaps with just anything. And so when we're looking at it, I'm like, okay, no one is basically doing a podcast. Like at the time, like I think Fingerspace was basically finishing up the last of their episodes. I don't know if they're still doing more episodes or planning on it or whatever, but basically it was them and then there was nothing. And so there was this huge void in the podcast sphere. And so we set out to launch the USAFBL fingerboarding podcast in March. And it took us about 4 months to basically figure out how to run a podcast, what equipment is needed, what software is needed. Like, I'm not a podcaster, but basically, like, we needed to stay relevant. So, like, we need to be able to talk about fingerboarding, getting people on the podcast, sharing that knowledge, their experiences. There still isn't really a place to even really find like events, product drops. There's like a lot of fingerboarding information out there that can't be accessed. And so for me, starting this podcast is a way for us to build a platform to basically one, stay relevant, but two, like being able to bring all of this information and stuff to hopefully, one place where you can basically rely on. I don't necessarily feel like I'm doing a great job as far as telling you guys like the newest product drops, what's really happening in the community and stuff like that. But I think that the take that we're going at is still like pretty cool and definitely very entertaining and stuff as well.
And when did you like that was 2022 going into 23 is when the podcast started?
Yeah, so we started March 2023.
Okay.
I think it's March 17th, I think is when the very first episode dropped.
So going on a year.
Yeah, we're getting really, really close to our 1 year anniversary with the podcast where we've been basically producing a banger episode every single week, which is pretty impressive. I don't think anybody has done that. And if they have, they haven't done it for nearly as long, I think, as we have. We're getting ready to push into probably the most fingerboarding episodes like produced like ever. I think we're getting really close.
Right. And what do you guys think if we eventually threw out some USAFBO fingerboard podcast shirts? Would you all be interested in one?
Yeah, let us know because I'm actually entertaining the idea of getting some podcast shirts made, maybe giving them out as some for some weekly listeners. Definitely
Right on.
on our Patreon subscribers will definitely have access to those as well. So definitely follow us on Patreon. And if you made it this far, finger the like button.
Finger it.
Finger the like button. So yeah, so we're basically, we got the tour 2 months out of the year, trying to stay relevant because I'm just like, it's crazy that like, it's middle of August and like we don't have really any content, nothing exciting really kind of going on, stuff like that. And so I'm like, we need like something to kind of fill the void and like we need to basically do more, I feel like. Always doing more. Because me, I can't just like not do anything. So I'm like, what's the next thing? And so, we got the store that's not doing very well. We're getting ready to close it. And then we just have this void. And so when we close the store down, I'm just like, there's literally nothing for me going on. And so I'm like, I need to rechannel that energy. And so the podcast made a lot of sense. It still makes a lot of sense. I have no plans of slowing down. And so that's where the podcast pretty much kind of came into play. And then man, we've got the 2023 summer tour. So this becomes a international summer tour. And so we actually added Toronto, Canada to the mix. So we ended up doing three less cities, but we added one more country to the mix.
Let me ask you this random question here. Out of all the stops on all your tours that you did, what was your favorite stop?
All the stops out of all the tours, favorite stop. Man,
No pressure.
no pressure. Probably Atlanta.
On the 2023?
Atlanta 2022 and 2023, and then Denver. Pretty much all three stops. I think all of my oldest friends are basically, you know, Cubeco, from this, because was talking to him originally, like, back in 2020, 2021. Dave Ware, all of them. They're all, the Wilmington, North Carolina, but they come to the Atlanta stop. And I met a lot of cool people at the Atlanta stop, Mason Baker, Father Skate Crew, Zeg Heads, all those guys. And so whenever I go to Atlanta, I feel like I'm literally at home with the boys. Same thing with Denver. I feel like I'm just at home with the boys. And so I feel those are definitely my two favorite stops.
Nice. Some of the stops I've never been to.
They're fun, man. They're all a lot of fun. But yeah, if you have the option to go into those, like they're really, really good stops. So but yeah, we did 9 cities. So we ended up doing Chicago, Atlanta, Draycut, which is flat face, Minneapolis, Cleveland, Toronto, Dallas, Philly, and Indy. And we killed it. The Canada Toronto stop was a little sketchy getting over the border, but we hired a we hired a company that basically did a carnet for us, which is basically documents that allow us to import export type of stuff, basically get over the border and have all the proper paperwork and stuff. Honestly, I don't think if I hired them and I did the paperwork myself, I don't think we would have done the event. I think we would have got stopped at the border. And so pretty nerve-wracking. We did a test run up there to go visit. We visited Six Gates Vito for at their shop just as a test run to get over the border and stuff. Talk to the people at the border and basically make sure that what we needed, what needed to happen, stuff like that. And it was a very complicated process. So getting over the border, hosting that event, nerve-wracking. And we did it the day before, we're on a tight budget. So, it's more work than vacation for sure. But it's the day before trying to get over the border, making sure because if we had any issues, like it left us 12 hours basically to try to fix it and get back over the border and stuff. But we made it over, no real issues. We almost got fined $10,000 because I messed up the process of how to get the paperwork stamped. And anyways, you can definitely check out this podcast episode explaining it. But yeah, we made it unscathed because that almost bankrupted us. So luckily the Canadians are nice and allowed me to go back and start the process all over again from scratch. But we made it. We definitely made it.
So go back and give that link you just tapped up there a listen to if you want to hear that full story.
Yeah, it's a good story. It's definitely a good story. And so once we did the 2023 International Summer Tour, we're still left with 10 months of we have the podcast at this point. And so the podcast is great, filler, but as a company, we're still only relevant for 2 months out of the year. And so I'm like, how do we get a competition out to people that can't come on tour and compete? Because we left out the West Coast on the 2023 summer tour, and the West Coast was mad, and rightfully so, and I get it. You guys have been part of the mix for 2 years, and all of a sudden we completely left you guys out. And so I'm like, how do we do something for not just the West Coast, but for everybody? And so came up with combo of the year,
The Cody.
Cody. So combo of the year, we started this. It's a variation basically of SLS is Trick of the Year. So it's a fingerboarding version of that. And so we kind of structured it kind of similarly, but definitely a USFBL twist to it for sure. And so we started Combo of the Year. So basically, submit your best combination trick to USFBL underscore COTY. And every month starting in September, or maybe it was August. Was it August? I think we started it in August. But
September was the first Dirty Dozen, though,
yeah,
right?
September was definitely the first 30 dozen. You're right. You're right. And so we collected all the best combination tricks and we got them down to the dirty dozen, the 12 best combination tricks. And every month, people submitted their clips. They knocked out the old ones. Some of the old ones kept, on the roster and they kept moving into the next month. And then December was the last month to get it in. And then we hosted our final finale where I'll definitely put the podcast episode there, but basically we crowned a king and three runner-ups. We gave away $1,000 cash and all kinds of prizes. It was a pretty big ordeal. And
I think it's kind of
Gary,
ironic that you're talking about doing something like this because you left West Coast off the tour, and didn't the winner isn't the winner from the West
yeah,
Coast?
the winner ended up being
There
from the
you
West
go.
Coast. So it was but we got everybody all over the planet. It was a global contest. We had two people out of the country, I think one from Finland and the other one from Spain. And so it was definitely a really great contest. Got everybody out fingerboarding, got everybody together. Like it was a very competitive, very fun experience.
And some of the submissions that people were throwing in were crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it got me stoked because like the variations of combinations like that were being submitted were things that I wasn't even like thinking about. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about doing this and that. And so it got a lot of people inspired. It got a lot of people just hyped up and basically being to see able like what is actually possible. And I think that was the biggest thing for a lot of us was is that in our world, our minds, like we think that, just this style of stuff is possible. And like Combo of the Year opened everybody's eyes up to the fact that there's crazy stuff out there that people are doing.
And I'm sure a lot of people that was going to upload something that seen something someone else uploaded, they had to re-go back and do something different. It's a structure of building what you can and what the possibilities are.
Yeah, I've had some people, like, some of the bad things that kind of came from it was that they saw some of the clips and they're like way outside their league. And so they didn't really want to try. And that kind of broke my heart a little bit. But I mean, I get it. If you got some people doing 5 and 6 piece bangers and you're a 2 or 3 piece banger kind of person, like I get it. It can be
But here's the
overwhelming.
thing, cleanness and that wow factor has a lot to do with it too. So if you
Yeah,
do something crazy with maybe three tricks, that might outweigh that seven-piece combo if it's just so mind blowing.
no, definitely. So 2024, I'm excited for because we're going to add more categories to it. I mean, there were definitely some mistakes made for 2023 Combo of the Year, but for a first annual event, like it went very, very well, in my opinion. You were definitely there with me the entire time.
Yep. That's kind of when I first started getting into the podcast with you.
I know we did a podcast together. I interviewed you originally, and that
Hmm.
episode went so well. We had to bring you on for
For
I'm
the ride.
like, yeah, for the
And
ride. I'm like, man, like we gotta get Gary on this like full time.
I appreciate you bringing me on.
It's been a lot of fun, man. This has definitely been a journey.
So now that we got from point A to point B and where we're at now, what does USA FBL have in store for 2024?
Man, so we have a very, very large lineup for 2024. So first off, we've got the podcast, which I plan on running the podcast forever in theory, but we're definitely going to be running it all the way through 2024, every
Yep.
single week, no hiccups.
52 episodes.
52 episodes. Also looking to try to do 52 listen to wins. So that's going to be one giveaway a week. That's going to be a pretty big goals, but I think we can hit it. Then we've got King of the Plies.
Dun, dun,
So
dun, dun. Let's talk
my
about it.
yeah, so my boy Gary over here kind of put the bug in my ear about a year ago, maybe a little longer.
I
And
think this is a little bit long. This is back uh your shop era.
yeah, that's so you're talking 2020. Yeah, so it's been like a
Yeah.
year and a half ish at least. Like he mentioned it to me at the shop. I thought it was all of my idea until like I found an old text message with you like hitting me up on it. and asking me if we wanted to do something more on it. And I was like, oh, snaps. Like, we were already having that conversation a long time ago.
I just had to plant the seed for you to grow a little bit.
Yeah, so it's going to be a twist on Thrasher's King of the Road. So it's going to be a fingerboarding version of that. So we're going to have 10 teams in 10 different cities completing a list of challenges. So each team is going to be in their own city doing the same list of challenges. There's going to be 20 challenges. Each team has to pick between 10 of them. They're going to have to film it, they're going to have to edit it, and they're going to have to submit a final version of it that's going to showcase the brand, the team, the city that they're in, and then, of course, all of the antics of completing these challenges.
And I will say, this is going to be a different thing for fingerboarding because it's going to open up your all's minds just a tad bit. It's like some of the challenges, without going into too much detail, are some challenges that you all are not going to expect.
They're going to be a lot of fun, and
It's going
I'm
to be fun, a
excited
whole
to
bunch of
see it.
fun.
I'm excited to see it. And so right now we've got Pipsqueak Wheels, this Port City Fingerboard Crew, Zeg Heads, Yuck Fingerboards, Cobalt. Is it Cobalt?
Cult,
Colt. I
cult.
always thought it was Cobalt. I never got clarifications on it. But CVLT boards, teak tuning, chems, gone fingerboarding. And then we've got all of those confirmed. We've got Fatty's pre-roll. They are unconfirmed slash confirmed. They're like sitting right there on the fence. We should definitely put a little pressure on them.
No pressure, no pressure.
No pressure, no
But all the
pressure.
pressure, get on it, boys.
Exactly. So definitely tag them and definitely message them and be like, you guys need to be part of this for sure. So just in case Fatty's ends up not doing it, they've got Fatty Fest, they've got all kinds of things going on, rendezvous, all of that. I get it. So no pressure, but just in case, Fatty's can't do it, we're looking for a brand or company that is interested in putting together a team of 3 to 5 people that can meet in real
It needs
life.
to be 3 or 5 people, yeah, that is together that can film this as a whole, not you know in your room by yourself somewhere. It's got to be you got to be with somebody else.
Yeah, the whole team needs to be able to meet in person in real life. So we're looking for one standby team just in case, but we're excited. This is going to launch April 4th, 2024.
So by the time this podcast comes out, this has already been released. Like people already know that this is coming, correct?
Now, this happens like in a few days. So this podcast launches in a few days. And so you
Mhm.
guys will have about 4 weeks before we launch this, but it is coming and we are here for it.
Well, I mean, like people already know about King of the Plaza. We've kind of released that a little bit.
Yeah, we've
We've
already
teased
released
it.
it. We've teased it for sure. I don't think we've launched the teams yet, but
So you're
we've
hearing it here
definitely teased
first.
it. Yeah, I'm excited
And
for
these are
it.
some solid teams. It's gonna be great.
No, most definitely. These are all established teams. They've got some deep roots in the community, and I'm excited to see what everybody puts together.
Absolutely. So there you go. King of the Plaza, number one, 2024.
And so, here in about 2 weeks, once you are listening to this podcast, we're going to be launching our first and unique ranking system. So, if you have competed at a USAFBL event, you have stats that we have been tracking, which I don't know if you guys were aware of or not aware of, but if you guys have been competing at any one of the USAFBL fingerboarding events, we have been tracking your stats, tracking your wins, tracking your medals, and also have applied a ranking system to you. So everybody that has competed in like Best Trick Street is all ranked from like city to city all the way into one category. So you can see where you place as far as ranking goes in Best Trick Street against everybody that's competed in a Best Trick Street competition at a USFBL fingerboarding event. We've
So
done
let
it
me
for,
ask you,
yeah.
is this a yearly rank or is it just like a general thing?
So right now we've compiled season 1, 2, and 3
Okay.
all together. So if you've been to all 3 years events, you're going to have rankings in every category that you compete in. Right now, they're all together. I have not quite figured out exactly how I want it to play out for 2025. I'm kind of looking into how 2024 plays out first. But basically, everything's going to be compiled season one, two, three, and then this year's summer, season four. We're going to compile all of those together, and then we're going to be doing regional and national events in 2025 where the top ranked fingerboarders will get invited to.
So this is general knowledge that anybody can get up and look up.
Yeah, so here in a couple weeks or to a month, it's coming. It's coming really, really close. I don't have an established launch date for it, but it is happening and it's happening quick. But you'll be able to get onto our website, USAFBL.com, and literally be able to see everybody's ranks, everybody's medal counts, everybody's rank.
No pressure,
Ex
guys.
I
Everybody's
exciting.
gonna see. Everybody's gonna see.
It's exciting. And so we have been working on getting the right software program and all that stuff, being able to integrate it into the website along with, all the stat tracking and data. It took us a long time to be able to stat track everybody and apply everybody a ranking, combine all the medals and all that stuff that everybody's been winning. It's been a process. And so for people that don't understand how big of a deal this is, we have 400 competitors
Wow.
from season one, two, and three combined, individual competitors. So some of these people competed, like Cubeco, for instance, like he's got like I think like six different like city events underneath his belt. Like he went to six different like fingerboarding events, like Denver twice, Chicago twice, Las Vegas once, et cetera, et cetera. Like a lot. So pretty big ordeal.
So will the online stuff like the combo of the year will that go towards these rankings as well, or is it just
This is just
tour
going
stock?
to be the competition portion of it. Combo of the year is not going to be part of this. I feel
Mhm.
like Combo of the Year will be on a completely separate tab on our website highlighting this. So,
Gotcha.
but yeah, we're super, super excited. Also, we're going to be launching league memberships with that as well. So it'll be a $25 league membership. It'll be an annual ordeal. It'll allow us to keep tracking your stats. So basically after or before the summer, I haven't figured out yet, but if you are wanting us to continue to track your stats, it'll be something that you'll need to become a league member in order to get those benefits.
That's moving forward, correct? So everything you
Correct.
did in the past is already on there.
Correct. So if you want to keep those stats and keep those grandfathered in, then you'll have to become a league member. And if you're not a league member, there's a lot of benefits that'll come along with it as well. So it'll provide you guys early access to events, after parties, all kinds of cool stuff that are just for league members only. So definitely working on some cool benefits and structures and stuff that come along with it. We've got the summer events coming up this year as well. Everybody's been asking me literally daily, I feel like, when are you guys going to launch it? When's it happening? What's going on with it?
Well, let's tell them.
Oh man, so we are currently trying to lock in the last two cities. We're looking at 20 sanctioned events happening this year. So we are looking at, yes, the West Coast. And yes, we are looking at 20 sanctioned cities happening this year for the summer events. So we've been looking at stepping up our game. We've been looking at trying to apply ourselves and basically hosting these events all across the nation for you guys. So we're looking at launching these dates at the end of March. So hopefully in 30 days or less from when this podcast launches, like you guys will be launching those events for you guys.
So will that take place of the 2024 USAFBL tour?
Yes. So we're going to be looking at sanctioned events this year instead of looking at the traditional summer tour. So we're excited to launch those right here on the podcast here in about 3 or 4 weeks just for you guys. It's going to be a great time and I'm excited the direction that our company is going in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. And then we've got Battle of the Plies. So we have been sitting on 3 years of tour content and tour competitions. So, Battle of the Plies is going to be a fingerboarding version of Battle of the Barracks. Everybody loves Battle of the Barracks. We actually have two, not one, but two seasons of a fingerboarding version of Battle of the Barracks. So, 2022, we did 12 cities. We taped and recorded all of the Game of Skate contests for each city of that tour. So, we've got 12 cities. Each city will be its own episode, and we're basically going to very well produce this TV show. I'm calling it a TV show because it's basically a series. We'll have a pilot episode, and then each city, all 12 cities, will be its own episode. So we're looking at a 13 season one of Battle of the Barracks. That's
Wow,
supposed to happen sometime this summer. I'm not gonna lie, it's probably looking at fall. That's being very conservative, but it's definitely happening this year.
that's a lot of footage to go through and edit,
It is. It's a
especially
very,
to
very
edit
large
well.
product. Yeah, it's going to be a very well, like I said, I mean, the goal is summer, but I mean, I'm not going to rush through this. Like, I want it to be a very polished, very entertaining, very great show. And so you guys are definitely going to be in for a treat for that. And then we're looking at something that's kind of controversial. Like, I'm not sure if I even want to mention that we're going to be doing this.
Someone already mentioned on the podcast they threw out that idea.
Did they? They did. They did,
Yep.
didn't they? They
Mm-hmm.
did. So we are looking into doing a fingerboarder of the year. So it's going to be very similar to Thrasher's Skater of the Year, but our fingerboarding version of that. So this fall, definitely look for Fingerboarder of the Year. We're going to be setting up nominees. There's going to be a public voting structure. There's going to be a lot of things that kind of go into it. We're still working on a lot of the details. We want this to be very well done, very less opinionated, more factual. We're basically, we don't want this to be like just a popularity contest. Like there definitely needs to be standards that go into picking out who the fingerboard of the year is. And so we're definitely working on making this very authentic and very polished.
Unique.
Yes. So super excited about that. And then 2024 combo of the year.
Yes, sir. I'm sure a lot of people are excited for that one.
Definitely. So we're going to be doing a second annual combo of the year this year. We're going to have more categories. We're going to introduce flat ground tricks combinations into the mix. We're going to add the most authentic tricks. So if you can do a single tray flip or like a two-piece banger, whatever it is, it needs to be the most fluent, most stylish like trick or
Easy.
combo. Yeah, it's
Easy.
steezy points. It's all about the steez. And of course, we're going to look at transitional combinations as well as its own category. And then, of course, I love a circus trick just like everybody else. So we're going to keep the original combo of the year spot open as well. So definitely look forward for 2024. If you guys are looking to sponsor that, definitely DM us because we're going to be looking at hyping this to the max. And then we're looking at moving to Missouri at the end of the year. So we're actually looking at getting out of Indianapolis and moving back to Springfield, Missouri in October. So you guys kind of heard it here. I feel like I did a great job of opening up the Midwest before we kind of moved out here. There really wasn't too much going on really in the Midwest. We had Grind Time, Chicken Fingers, Cryptic Collective kind of had, Queen City Sesh. And honestly, that was kind of about it. And then from there, like a lot of events started happening in Michigan, Ohio. Even you started hosting some stuff as well. And so I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I wouldn't like say like me personally, but I definitely feel like I helped and started moving the ball forward as far as events and stuff like that happening in this area. So moving back to my home city state and being closer to friends, family, and hopefully being able to get the ball rolling on the fingerboarding scene in the Ozarks. And so I'll probably be looking at getting together with Teak Tuning, Gibby Dex, doing more stuff with Benny Good Vibes out in that direction. So definitely look for some more fingerboarding influence out in the real Midwest, I guess you would say.
The real. How hard of a choice was it for you to decide to move back there?
I think once the storefront closed and everybody is not really needing a source of fingerboarding. Like when we opened the storefront up, like the storefront was a really big deal because there really wasn't a lot going on in Indianapolis or in that section of the Midwest. And so now, like, there is events happening. I can almost within a 4-hour drive from my house, like I can go to a fingerboarding event, I feel like at least once a month.
Hmm.
And so I feel like at this point, like my influence isn't necessarily needed as much here that it was, when I first came out here 2, 3 years ago. So
So when you move back home, are you planning on reopening the storefront out there again,
I
or
don't
is
know
that
about a
just on the back burner right now?
storefront, but I definitely know that I want to be doing more local events and things like that. And so
Hmm.
I'm definitely looking at opening up the Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas City, St. Louis area, basically, to more fingerboarding infused type stuff. So.
So with that being said, Levine, I know you did one last week on part one, but are you gonna do a listen to win on part two?
Ooh, we should definitely do a listen to win. I think this one is going to be more of a watch to win.
A watch to win. Here we go.
So I want to see where my real OGers are at. My real season one, day one USAFBLers are at. So the first person, actually, let me tell you what you're gonna win. So we've got a jersey barrier here from Curbed Fingerboards. That's my private brand. And I'm going to be giving away this jersey barrier to the first person that can tag me in a season one large USFBL logoed t-shirt. And if you have, let me pull this one out. A season one black swag bag, drawstring swag bag, you can win it. So take a picture of either the drawstring bag or you wearing a large logoed USAFBL t-shirt, sweatshirt, or a hoodie. The large logo, that's a season one right there.
Yes, sir.
So no fingerboarding involved. I just want to see where my OGers are at, my day oneers are at. So first person to tag me in a drawstring bag, or the large logo t-shirt or
So
sweatshirt hoodie gets the
let's
jersey barrier.
let's go back a little bit. That wouldn't be on a reel. That'd be like a post or a story.
It could be a reel or it could be a pic post story type deal. Just tagging USAFBL.
And listen, taking a screenshot of Levine wearing the shirt right now don't count. And screenshot your face on it, no.
Yeah, no Photoshop, no Photoshop. But yeah, tag USAFBL and then tag curbed.fb.
Simple, simple.
Simple,
Anybody can do
simple.
it.
Anybody can do it. So the history behind the drawstring bags, we gave out 50 swag bags to the first 50 people to enter into the season one tour stops. So that's for Indy, Denver, Las Vegas, and Chicago. And so we filled them up with like wheels and trucks and grip tape and whatever the sponsors and stuff like that kind of wanted to throw in. And so they were put into those swag bags. We also had some leftover swag bags, and so we gave those out as sponsor pack, items and stuff as well for like season one and I think half of season two. So
I think I won one of those at a competition somewhere before. Maybe it was right around season one, but it was at the Queen City Sessions.
yeah, yeah, I sponsored that one, and I think I threw a few of those bags in. And then
Hmm.
these are the very first batch of shirts and stuff. We were large logo,
Yep.
loud and proud, and
Yep.
so
Yep.
now we're a little bit on the smaller side logos, high chest stuff like that. So definitely some season one OGers if you have any of those. So I want to see who's been with us since day one.
All right, Levine. So we're at this part of the podcast now where we've posted up this question on Facebook and Instagram. If anybody had any questions for you, to tag them. So we picked the best of the best, or some of the best from the best, because there was a lot of questions that went out. But you ready to answer some questions people had for you?
Yeah, I'm always excited for this part of the show. It's a way for the fans to be able to ask us personally, not just me, but any of the podcast guests that we have on the show, like, stories or questions that they like to know.
All right, well, Levine, question number one. Where do you see USAFBL in 5 years?
That's actually a really good question. So, in 5 years, I see USFBL having 3-day weekend conventions happening all over the US and Canada for the regionals and nationals. Not even just that, maybe just even like just the tour, but basically instead of hosting like single day events, they're going to be weekend long events. And so definitely large scale convention style type events for sure. I see us doing I don't know how many countries, but maybe like a 10 country world tour. I think that when we
Wow.
did Canada, we definitely figured out a blueprint as to how to efficiently do like just stops in different countries every single year. And so we kind of cracked the code a little bit on that aspect of it. And so a world tour is definitely within our scope and definitely within our range. It literally just kind of boils down to resources. We've got to get enough resources to be able to make that stuff happen. But it is definitely a reality or can be a reality. So I'm pretty excited about that. I also see us being televised on ESPN as an official sport. Like I see fingerboarding becoming like cornhole or darts or bowling or something like that, like a micro sport, basically becoming something that'll definitely be televised. And I see like just kids being able to grow up and be able to have fingerboarding as a professional pathway of being like, a professional fingerboarder. I also see USAFBL doing a global fingerboarding version of the X Games. I would love to be able to see an event where everyone all over the world can basically come in and compete X Game style, but definitely a fingerboarding version of that. I definitely can see that kind of happening in 5 years. 5 years, like it's a long time and it's not a long time all at the same time. And so these are definitely things that I can definitely still see us doing and definitely reaching for in 5 years. Then, of course, I hope to plan on still doing the podcast, King of the Plies, Battle of the Plies. I think all of those are going to be absolutely massive in 5 years from now.
And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more, that's going to get picked up along the way as well.
Definitely, definitely. So, I mean, these seem like pretty high goals, and trust me, they are definitely very high goals. But for me, the way my mind works, it's we're already walking down that path. And so it's not a matter of will we get there, but when we get there.
That's a solid 5 year plan. I can see it happening too.
And so like we're already, one foot in front of the other. Like we're already walking down that way. And so I think that this is definitely doable within 5 years. And hopefully you guys are here for it. So let us know in the comments like if this is something that you guys would love to see.
Absolutely. Okay. Next question. When will, and I hope I'm saying his name right, when will Markov Schussler have his interview on the podcast?
He has been on my list, but I definitely need to reach out to him and speed this up. So for you guys that don't know who Markov is, Markov did it was like a international fingerboarding championships like 10 years ago, like a long time ago, but he also has the world record, Guinness Book of World Records, like largest fingerboarding collection of fingerboards like ever. And when I was up in Minneapolis, where he resides out of, I think he's like, a little bit outside the city or whatever, but went out to his compound and stuff. And when I say compound, like it's absolutely nuts, but he has a room that's like, I don't know what you call it. It's like a bonus room. It's like, I don't know, it's probably like 1,500 square feet. It just seems like a massive room. And it's just boxes to the ceiling with just every kind of tech deck, every kind of fingerboard, obstacles, everything still in the original box packaging. It's absolutely wild how much stuff he has. And so I would love to get him on the podcast and definitely talk about that. So if you
That'd be
guys
a
are excited
crazy.
about that episode, let us know in the comments.
Absolutely. I'm excited to hear it.
But that episode definitely needs to happen. So I'm gonna work on making that happen sometime before the summer.
Let's do it. All right. Next question. What are you skating? What's the main setup right now?
All right, so I happened to bring my setups with me. So anybody that knows me, I absolutely hate setting up brand new fingerboarding setups. So when I say this, I mean like literally applying trucks to the deck, wheels to the trucks. Like I used to love it when I was younger, and now I just absolutely despise it. Like it's the worst part of fingerboarding for me. If I ever like get rich doing this, I'm gonna hire like a professional fingerboarder setup for me. But I only run one setup at a time. A lot of the combination tricks and stuff like that that I do requires me to be perfectly in sync with my deck. And so I always refer to my fingerboard as my avatar for anybody that's ever watched the movie. Like, I feel like you and your board have to be like one. And so for me, I always loved a symmetrical board, mainly because I came from the tech deck, like before tech deck times. And so those boards were completely symmetrical, very flat, no concave. And it took me a long time of going through a lot of fingerboard companies to find a company that basically makes a mold that's similar to that. And I came across a double joint, high joint mold, and it is basically medium kicks, no concave boards. And so I started off with a 34 millimeter double joint on 34 dynamics and abstracts with level up bushings. This thing is shredded. It
I
wasn't
think it looks
nearly,
beautiful.
I know, but it really wasn't that shredded. And then I ended up moving up to a 36 same mold double joint, and that thing was shredded. I actually stepped on this board at my shop. I fell off the table. I took a step back and then I just
Mm,
cracked it just a little bit. And so I had to get a replacement. And so I replaced it with this 36 millimeter double joint deck, abstracts, dynamics. And then I really got into really trying to learn my nollies and switch tricks. And it is very hard to do on a wider deck. So moved back down to Old Faithful, the 34 millimeter.
Old Faithful.
And so right now, my next deck will definitely be another double joint. I gotta set my alarm and figure out when he is doing another drop. But I'm thinking about moving back over to Black River trucks now that they got different colors, different variations and
My
stuff.
man.
I
My
know
man.
everybody's like, Dynamics or Black River. And so, like, for the longest time, Dynamics had all the color combinations, plus they're a little bit cheaper because they're made here in the US where we're from. And so Dynamics for me, just from a budget friendly slash, performance standpoint, like Dynamics was the go-to. And so, but it made the easier because like Dynamics had all the color combinations. And so, everybody's all about the setup, how it looks. It's all about the swag when it comes to that stuff. And so Black River was kind of lacking. And now they launched all new color combinations. They've now got 36 millimeter
Right,
like, trucks. So if I want to step back up to the 36 millimeter like, spear, like Black River's there for it. And so
bro.
thinking about
They
definitely moving back over.
they even got purple.
I
They
know those
got
things are
purple.
fly with a lot. So
Yeah.
pretty stoked for those. And then I'm actually getting ready. I've been using abstracts pretty much religiously for about 2 or 3 years. Abstracts for me, they're grippy, but not super grippy, not like labs or anything like that. And so I'm actually looking to move back over either to like some Black River Cruisers or some flat face wheels, get more of a smoother ride, less grippy.
That hard fill.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't like those type of wheels starting out, but like I'm finding myself really loving how smooth, how like just buttery they feel.
I think you just go through transitions too, where you like the feel of something and then you like the feel of something else, and it's just a back and forth game for a while.
It is. And even though I try to mess back with the 36 millimeter like decks, and I'm just like, it gives me so much placement, but it makes
Mhm.
the trick I don't know how to explain it. It's like I can move back and still be fine, but I feel like the 34 is definitely where like I need to stay at. I'm almost
Right.
entertaining going down to a 32, but I can't get myself to do it.
Yeah, I found out my sweet spot is a 35. I've always been 34 and I tried 36. 36 is a little bit too big and I went to 35 and now I'm just kind of stuck on 35. So for the time being, mine's 35.
35. I'm gonna stay at the 34, and I'm thinking about switching back over to Black River trucks and Black River wheels or flat face wheels. I think that's gonna be the next go-to setup. But double joint, that's my jam right there. I'm also
Sounds
looking
good.
at man, so who else makes so Marcus Kramer makes Made by Me. He has got symmetrical boards. I need to try his, which I'm looking at getting sometime in the very, very near future. And then Leah with the TP Dex.
Hmm.
She just came out with a Penny V2, which is kind of a symmetrical, low concave type deck as well. So I'm looking at, rocking that as well sometime in the near future as well.
All right. I wasn't for sure if you were done talking or not. All right. Brian, edit that out. Thanks, buddy.
And
And all right, next question, and this don't make any sense to me, so I hope it will make a little bit of sense to you. It says, "Is it a Chick-fil-A kind of town?"
oh man. So I just realized that I went on rambling this entire time and I never gave my summer tour crew a shout out. So the summer tour could never even be done unless I had my crew. My crew, man. So Yeshua Cruz and Sierra, Craig, Andy, and Ricky Eklov, my mom's Jewel, and her husband Ricky Palmer. Man, like they killed this tour with me. Like we executed these tour like every single season two and season three, we killed it. But on tour, I ride in the truck with Yeshua and Sierra. Sierra's favorite fast food spot is Chick-fil-A. And so when we're driving to these events, some of these drives are super long, especially like the ones out west where, we're gone for 13 days. We'll be driving through like nothing. And so like depending on where we're going, say we're going to like Cleveland, like we could be going through a lot of like wooded areas, like cities and stuff like that. And some of these cities are small, and then some of these cities are massive. And so, but we'll start getting hungry, and I'm like, man, we gotta like pull over the next like truck stop or find us a city where we can go grab us a bite to eat real fast. And like we'll find these really small towns, and you'd be like, oh, there's a city. You'll see a sign for the next city, be like 13 miles or something on the highway while you're driving. And we're like, okay, yeah, there says there's a city coming from 13 miles. Like, we'll go get something there. And then we'll get up to the city, and like, I'll be like, Sierra, like, this city is super small. Like, I don't think it's a Chick-fil-A kind of town. And so she'll be like super bummed out. She's like, but I really want Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, I know, I get it. And so, like, do you want to stop here? Or do you want to go? And you're like, no, let's go to the next city. And like, we'll go to the next city. It'll be like, not a Chick-fil-A type of town either. And so we've gone to some places where like we've never found a Chick-fil-A. And then like whenever we do hit a city and there is a Chick-fil-A, like she loses her mind and I absolutely love it.
What a solid question. All right. Next question is, can you show off your most used fingerboard, most special fingerboard to you, your favorite fingerboard you own?
Oh man. So man, I didn't bring my first fingerboard down. It's the Mountain Dew board, which I guess I can throw a picture at, or I can cut and edit and go down and go grab it real fast. And then I've got the 35. I thought it was a 36, but this is actually a 35, the double joint that I smashed. I actually took this to Disney. I've been rocking this for a good year and a half before I accidentally stepped on it. This one's actually the first deck that I've ever actually broke. Um, the replacement one, which was the Obey double joint, this one got me through a lot of my style issues because of the slow rotation, because it's so wide. but Mr. Faithful is going to be the 34 millimeter double joint. I've actually used it so much it wore through the first ply. It was green, and now it's like actually getting into the ply where it's not even like a green anymore.
Like I think it looks beautiful.
I
I love
love
when
it.
boards get worn down like that.
And it's the wheels, everything has been like the same set. Like so when I set up a deck, I set it up basically like for life. Like I don't ever swap stuff out. So like
Hmm.
once I find something I love and I know like this is it, I stick it on there. And so like even the abstract wheels, they're smaller because they've been worn in so much than like
Right.
the original set. The deck weighs less because there's less like board, there's less graphic. And so like it's definitely a custom feel just to me.
All right. Next question. A little bit more of a serious question, I would assume here. How come it feels like there is very few prizes being won at your events, even though you have a lot of sponsors and people like Black River supporting the events?
So someone I think reached out. I saw that question. So this is actually a very good question because this is a logistical type question that comes along with the tour. So for instance, we did Minneapolis. Minneapolis, like we did the tour, and, like Minneapolis is a stop. Minneapolis, I love that city. I love going to that stop, but there is not a lot of city sponsors that will sponsor Minneapolis. So when people have the opportunity to sponsor the tour, they get to pick, what stops they want to sponsor, of course. And then if you're a tour sponsor, you kind of give us enough stuff to cover like all of the stops. And so if you're fortunate enough, you have places like Atlanta and like Denver. Those two cities have like sponsors out the wazoo. Like there's 20, 30 sponsors that'll sponsor Atlanta, 20, 30 sponsors that'll sponsor Denver. So like having prizes and raffle table type, items is not an issue for some of these stops. And then you've got places like Minneapolis that only has like three or four sponsors that'll sponsor that city, but I still have to go to that city with prizes with stuff for raffles. And so I have to take tour sponsor stuff, which is Black River and, some of the other tour sponsors. I've got to be able to move some of the stuff that would normally go to this city and move it over to cities like Minneapolis that have not a lot of sponsors to help cover that void. And so if you go to one city and there may not be nearly as much Black River stuff or not nearly much like flat face stuff or wherever you're looking for, if they sponsor that city, it stays in that city. But if they're a tour sponsor, I have to move some of their stuff from one city over to a city that doesn't have a lot of sponsor pack stuff because I don't know what people are going to send me until they send me the stuff. And so a company may send me four boards, a company may send me like 20 boards. It just depends. I have no idea until I get all the stuff in. And then when you're getting ready to go on tour and you got all these cities, because every city has to have prizes and raffle table stuff and all the other things that go along with it. And so you got to be able to move items from one place to another to make sure that every single one of the cities has stuff. And so that's the main reason why you'll see some cities with more, some cities with less, stuff like that, because it just depends on the amount of sponsors that we have. Because, I'm not in control of what sponsors want us to do and stuff like that. So, someone wants to sponsor one city or someone wants to sponsor 10 cities. I don't have really any control over that. And so, sponsors that don't, cities that don't have a lot of sponsors, you've got to figure out a way to still make sure that those cities still have a great time, still have the ability to win raffles, still have the ability to win prizes.
Right. So sometimes you just have to do what you feel is best for the tour and
Yeah.
swap things around like that.
Yeah, and so that's where a lot of that stuff comes into. And so, in 2022, we had the same issues. We had 12 stops in 2022. That's a lot of stops. That's a lot of raffles. That's a lot of prizes. And so in 2022, we actually did five categories for competitions. We did vert best run and best street, street best trick and best run, and then game of skate in 2022. First, second, and third place won medals and prizes. And so, with five categories, three winners in these categories, that's 15 people winning prizes. And so, if I gave away, let's say, five items per person, that's 75 items for each city. That's a
Right.
lot. That's a lot of items. And so
And then
it's
that cuts out
very,
of the raffles and
yeah,
stuff
and
as
it cuts out
well.
of the raffle and stuff as well. And so 2023, we actually had to get rid of the vert contest simply because it strained us as far as what we were able to do for prizes and what we were able to do for the raffle table because we had to give out so many prizes for, all the winners and stuff that come along with it as well. And so 2022 was definitely an issue because, if you had people like Black River and 75 items had to go out just in prizes, that's a lot. And you had to do that for 12 cities. That's insane. And so
Right.
we had to, it's just a logistical thing. And so when you look at things like that, that's we got to do what we have to utilize what we have with the stuff we do have. So
It sounds like maybe whoever asked that question was at one stop and a different stop and seeing two different ways
and
it was
it's a
going.
possibility is they may have been able to just kind of like, hey, I was over here and there was definitely way more this or way more
Right.
that, and it's just because there's more sponsors at that city. And so it's not a very what's the word I'm looking for, it's not the best system, but it's the only system that I know that works for what we're trying to do. So
Right. I think you clarified that pretty well, though. So hopefully, whoever asked that fully understands how you're operating now.
yeah, and so that's why I've been preaching a lot with events and stuff, especially like in the groups and things like that. Like if you guys have the ability to sponsor an event or take, just help out events in general. Like there's a lot of things that, need to be done and have to go down to make an event, successful. And a lot of people don't realize like just having prizes and raffle table, that's a whole different sector of the event that people don't even like take into consideration about the fingerboarding event.
Exactly. All right, Levine, we got one final question for you. Are you ready?
What do you got?
When are your boards set to drop? When are they
So
to drop?
I think I've gotten to the point now where like I'm not even sure if I'm gonna drop boards. Like
What?
I want to drop. Here's the thing. I'm having so much fun creating all of these unique experiences for people. And like, I feel like if I start dropping decks, then that takes from what I'm already doing. Because it's very hard to do what I'm doing plus sit back and make decks because one hand doesn't wash the other. I can't do both at the same time type of stuff. Like if I'm doing podcast stuff, like I can do King of the Ply stuff or I can do combo of the year stuff because it's all like on the computer or whatever I'm doing, yada yada yada. But like when I'm making decks, that's a whole different separate activity. And so long story short, like I don't know if I want to become a deck maker. I feel like I want to basically continue to create unique experiences. But if I was to drop decks, I think they would definitely drop in May. And if I don't drop decks in May, I'm definitely going to be giving out prototypes in May. So either way, something in May, decks will be hitting the public some way, shape, or form.
You guys heard it here first. Shooting for me.
Shooting for May.
You know what you can always do is just make decks solely for event purposes to drop them in or throw them as prizes in events too.
Well, that was the main purpose of making decks was to help alleviate a lot of the, sponsorship issues that we have because we're doing so much. It requires a lot of things. And so the main reason why I started Curd, the obstacles and stuff, was to
Mm-hmm.
help like alleviate having to constantly find sponsors and as many sponsors and stuff like that because I get it. It's a lot.
Well, May,
May,
May.
May. You got to hit me up with some shout outs.
Yeah. How do you usually go about this portion of it?
I usually be like, well, I know you probably got, I'm not sponsored by anybody. So, I know you, I usually do, I know you got probably a long list of shout outs.
No, I got you, got you. All right, you ready? All right, Levine, it seems like we're at the end of the podcast. We're wrapping things up. And I know you probably have a long list of shout outs or people you want to throw out there. So, what all shout outs do you have?
Man, I don't even know if I even want to try to take a stab at this because I know so many people and I came across so many people and so many people have just helped me out. But I'm gonna take a stab at it. I'm gonna take a stab at it. So,
Take a deep breath.
all right. So first off, definitely my mom's Jewel Palmer, definitely by my side, had my back since day one. John Storm, Mike Croney. I want to thank my team, Brian OMG, Yeshua Cruz, Sierra Craig, Ricky Ecloff, Andy Rickloff, Ricky Palmer, and of course, Gary Graves being part of the team as well. People that kind of mentored me in the early days, Cube Code, Nostalgia FB, Grind Fingerboards, Warehouse Ramps. And of course, I don't really want to leave too many people out because I mean, anybody who's visited the storefront, the physical storefront, who supported the storefront, anyone that's been to a USAFBL event, anybody that's sponsored. Huge shout out to Cody Mexico, Bryce, Michael, and Dave Ware for saving my butt in Chicago season 1. You guys are definitely some real heroes. There was a guy in Dallas in 2022 that welded our trailer at the event that helped me and the team get back home. Can't remember who you are or your handle, but literally think about you all the time. Just every time I see the trailer, I'm just like, man, like I need to find out who that guy was. So whoever you are, like, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, definitely saved us from staying in Dallas for another 2 days, which we couldn't afford. So helped us tremendously. Also, I want to thank sponsors. We're talking city sponsors, tour sponsors, anybody that sponsored store events, combo of the year, King of the Plies, the podcast. Also, want to thank all of my Patreon subscribers. If you're watching this before anybody else, thank you, thank you, thank you. We've got early access, subscription boxes, and so much more. Also, I want to thank all of my fans and all of my subscribers across all platforms. I think that's it.
That was a solid list of shout outs.
I
Wow.
think uh I think I somehow got everybody, but if I managed to have missed you, man, like I definitely shout out to you.
Absolutely. So before we wrap things up, do you have anything else you want to mention or talk about or
I
throw out
think
there?
that two parts to a podcast. I think we hit everything. I'm excited
I
for
think we hit more than everything. This is a solid story. There's the Levine story goes deep, and everybody heard it here first.
it does, it does. Next up on the podcast, we've got the 50th episode, which is going to be awesome. It's going to be basically our 1 year anniversary on the podcast. We've got league memberships, King of the Plies, and we've got back to interviewing normal fingerboarding guests. So super excited for things that are coming on. Till next time.
Well, next time, guys.